Welcome to Unjaded today. I am so glad to be chatting with you here. Today, I've got something super exciting to be talking with you about. It is actually a listener question that I'm answering. And this question is all about an emotional authority in human design. How long do I have to wait to make decisions? Welcome to Unjaded. This is your straight talk, shoot from the hip, wrapped in a little bit of love, Human Design for Business podcast. We talk a lot here about clarifying your message so that you can bring in paying clients with ease. And ease is different from easy. Stick around to find out how we roll here. I'm your host, Vickie Dixon. I am a 2-4 emotional manifesting generator, light on the emotional, and I'm a quad right in human design. In real speak, I am an entrepreneur of 30 plus years. I've had every kind of business there is, and I always say that business is my love language. I can't wait to dive in with you here on the podcast. This is a great question. And I got to tell you, this is something that I have been really boots on the ground learning and leaning into in my own human design for at least the last 3 years. And yes, it has taken me that long. And I continue to learn lessons around this decision making with an emotional authority. So here's the thing. If you don't have your human design chart, you can pause this episode and you can go to my website. It's vickiedixon.com to run your human design chart there for free. You're going to want to know if you are emotionally defined or not. And you're probably the opposite of what you think you are. I know that my experience within my human design was that I am an emotional authority, and I always say I'm light on the emotional. Why is that? Well, for 2 reasons. 1, I'm Gen X, and every generation has its challenges. Every generation hopefully does a little better than the generation before. Jury's still out on that one right now. But Gen X, as a rule, we didn't have a lot of space for our emotions, right? We were the latchkey kids. We were the ones who were, if you want to cry, I'll give you something to cry about. All of the things. There just wasn't room for emotional health back then. And that's okay, because that's how we came in, and that's why we came in, and that's what we get to work with in this lifetime. So that's one of the reasons that I'm not super connected to my emotional system. It means that I get to work through that, right? It means that I get to give myself the gift of understanding and starting to play in that. The other reason for me that I say light on emotional is that my emotional system and my root center in my human design, I'm a split definition. So if you're new to human design, that means that the energy in my design works in 2 separate ways. So I have my root and my emotional system kind of off on its own doing the rest of the thing. And then all of the rest of my definition, or who I'm here to be, is in another place connected to each other. So I have 2 different energy systems at work. And my emotional system is subconscious. So I have an emotional wave that I'm not aware of, which is a trip. It is taking me a long time to really allow myself to be connected to this emotional decision making in my design. And you may have the same experience, no matter what generation you're from, but especially if you're Gen X or older. It's just not a thing that we had space for, our emotions, right? And especially if you also have a subconscious piece of your emotional design. So how to tell if you're emotionally defined? Let's go back to the basics for a second. If your large triangle on the bottom right-hand side of your chart is colored in, that means you're emotionally defined. So you are automatically an emotional authority. And what that means, why this listener is asking about decision-making, is that there's no truth in the now. As emotional authorities, it takes us a long time to get clear on things. So we shouldn't really make decisions in the moment, no matter what else is defined in our charts. So for me, I have my spleen, the triangle on the opposite side, colored in. And then I have my sacral, the red circle near the bottom, colored in, and then my emotional authority. So I have 3 authorities kind of operating at once, but the emotional authority is always going to win because it's the slowest. So you may have more than one authority in your design as well, but the emotional is always going to win. So my spleen speaks lightning fast. It's the intuitive drive to stay safe in the moment. It's the intuitive drive to survive, basically. Our oldest awareness, and it's so fast. It's lightning fast, and I have that in my body. And then I have my sacral, and my sacral is like, because it's like a motor. And I can ask my sacral yes or no questions, and it will answer. And it will be all hyped up and ready to go. And then I have to wait and wait and wait for my emotional system to catch up. So how long do I have to wait with an emotional authority? Well, that is the $1 million question, my friend. Every decision is going to be different. And I would like to bust a myth in the human design space that says that you are going to have to wait out a wave for your decision. The training that I went through for human design taught by someone who's open emotionally, taught that if ever in your wave it's a no, the whole thing has to be a no. Now, my lived experience tells me that's absolutely not true, because if I lived by that advice, I would never do anything, because there's always going to be a no at some point in my wave, right? When I'm low, I don't want to do anything. Everything's a no when I'm low. When I'm high, everything's a yes. So for me, it's really about just allowing myself to feel the feels. I think this is the work for us as emotional authorities. We have to allow ourselves to get present with our emotions, and not just in a way that says, well, I'm low today, so everybody has to deal with it, or I have to accept that about myself. I mean, in a way that allows you to really go in and say, I'm going to allow myself to feel whatever comes up right now. I'm going to be with this and feel whatever is here for me. And that is not always comfortable. Right now, my husband and I, we get into this space. We've been married for 32 years, and we get into this space. He's open emotionally and I'm defined. We get into this space sometimes where I kind of put this cocoon around me, this protective cocoon around me, and I don't even necessarily know why I'm doing it or what it's about. And that's my work. I get to go in and explore that. And he's over here being open emotionally, amplifying my emotions, because that's what will happen if you're open emotionally or undefined emotionally. If your center is white, you will amplify things back into the field. He feels it bigger than I do. He feels my emotions before I feel my emotions when we are in auric space. And what that means is that when we are within like a couple of arm's lengths of each other, he is going to feel my emotions. I am going to set the tone for the house. It's just the two of us here. I'm going to set the tone for the house. So right now, just this morning, I had to say to him, because there's a little bit of angst in our home, and I know it's me. I know it's not him. I understand now that it's me. Whereas before human design, I wouldn't have known that it was me. And I just looked at him and I said, I don't know. I don't know what's happening right now. And I hugged him. And he's like, you don't know? What do you mean you don't know? Because for him, that's like so weird, right? Because he would always know what he's feeling. And I'm like, yeah, I don't know what it is. I don't know, but I'm just giving myself the time to be with it. He's like, okay. And as long as he knows, then it's okay, right? But it's when we don't give ourselves the space and we try to like push through it and make ourselves appear happy. I'm putting that in air quotes. Making ourselves appear happy or, sinking into it or something like that, where there's a lot more angst around it. It takes a lot more time to go through it. So what does this have to do with decision making? So as an emotional authority, you're going to take time making your decisions because you have this ebb and flow in emotions. And I'm going to walk you through my most recent significant purchase so that you can see that this may take longer than a wave. Because depending on what channels and gates, so the lines in between or the circles that are colored in numbers in your emotional solar plexus, depending on what's defined there for you, you may have a wave that just you kind of are on an even keel all the time. And once in a while you have this big blowout and then you're good. You might have a wave that kind of ratchets up. Your needs aren't being met. And then all of a sudden you explode and it's rage. Or you may have one like mine that's based on expectations. And you really get to explore not being attached to the outcome of things because your expectations are always so high and then they crash down. So you can have different types of waves going on. So to be able to say to somebody, well, just wait out your wave. And we're not always aware of our waves, right? Because we're comfortable with our emotions. So decisions. Recently, I made the decision to purchase a new iPhone. I have had my iPhone since 2019. So it's pretty old in the phone world. And I use it every single day for my work. And the camera's acting up and the sound is acting up. And it's just become a big deal. It has probably taken me 6 or 7 months to decide which phone I want and when I'm going to buy it. And that's not an exaggeration. So I will go to the Apple website. I will go to Best Buy. I will go to wherever. And I thought I had decided finally that I was going to get a 15 Pro Max. And I mean, I go between the Pro Max and the regular. Like, it's ridiculous. All of the stuff that it takes for me to make this decision. I finally decided the 15 Pro Max was what I was going to do. And then my friend messages me and says, don't buy your phone yet. There's a 16 coming out. And the audio quality and the video quality on it, you'll be able to do podcasts on it and everything. And I'm like, oh, Jesus, now we have to wait again. And I did have to wait again. I probably had to wait another 4 or 5 weeks to process that through my emotional system again. I opened up the tabs on my laptop and I looked at the phones again and I looked at the plans again and I went through all of the things again. And it was just this, what I could feel like is a painful process if I didn't now understand that this is just how I am meant to work as an emotional authority. And if you are emotionally defined, you got to give yourself a pass for taking a long time with your decisions. You have to give yourself some grace around the fact that when you make quick decisions, they're probably not the best decisions for you. Instead, when you can feel really super spacious in your decision, it's just you're unattached to it anymore. And then you make better decisions. So for me, how did I know it was the right moment to buy a phone after 6 or 7 months? How did I know after all of this research and all of this pros and cons and this plan or that plan and all of the things? How did I finally know? I knew because I was no longer attached. And that's something in spiritual spaces that we kind of throw around like it's, I don't know what, and we maybe don't understand really what it means or what it would feel like in our bodies. So I'm going to explain what it feels like for me. What it feels like for me is like a calm in between the storm or in the middle of the storm. So before I make my decision, if it's a big decision, before I make my decision, I have all of this noise around it. I have all of this like clutter, and it's hard for me to get a hold of the thought. And I'm processing. And then there comes a moment, and this is not a long period of time. This is like a few moments sometimes where it's just like everything is quiet. And I know whether it's a yes or a no. And I can't explain to you how that feels other than what I've just said. You're going to feel it differently in your body than I feel it in mine. For me, it's quiet. For you, it could be a voice. It could be something you see. It could be confirmation from the outside. There's something that you are going to know. That's my decision. And I just know it because I feel it in my body. So this is something that I think as emotional authorities, we are exploring over a long period of time throughout our lives. I mean, our creativity is tied up in our emotional solar plexus. Our decision-making is tied up in our emotional solar plexus. Emotional eating lives in the emotional solar plexus. Shopping, addictions, all kinds of things live in the emotional solar plexus. And we get to do the work of actually allowing ourselves space in our lives to not have clarity. We get to let it be okay to not be clear 100% of the time in a world that values clarity and quick decision-making. It can be really uncomfortable to say, can you give me a few days to decide on that? Can you give me a little bit of time for that? Right now, I've got 2 proposals in my inbox. They've been there probably I've got 3 proposals in my inbox, actually. One of them's been there for 2 months, and a couple of them have been there for 3 or 4 weeks. And I have just let people know it's percolating. And what their knee-jerk reaction is, because they're not human design practitioners, their knee-jerk reaction is to fix this for me, to help me make my decision. They want to get on a call with me. And I'm like, it's not that. I just need to sit with it. I just need to give myself space around it, and I will know when I know, and I won't know before I know. And that's the way it is with your emotional authority too. So I hope that I have answered that question, but I kind of haven't, have I? How long do you have to wait with an emotional authority? The answer is always that depends. You get to decide. It's going to depend on the size of the decision that you're making, the amount of money you're spending. You just get to, your opportunity is to process it, understand, and get really in tune with how you're feeling about it. And it does get easier over time to allow yourself the space, but it doesn't necessarily get faster over time. It's just that you understand the process better and you're able to work with it a lot easier. If you have a follow-up question for that, I'm going to put my speak pipe in the show notes for you. And that is an app where you can just click the button and send me a voice memo and ask me your question. And you may even hear yourself on a future episode of Unjaded. Thanks for being here.